Cardinals fans, it's Thursday, May 10th, and we've got a lot to cover this week. The Cubs and Cardinals wrap up series number 2. The Cards end their homestand with a thud. The Cubs kick theirs off with a bang. Joe Madden plays lineup games. The Mets bat out of order. 2 elite pitchers hit the DL. The Machine collects number 3,000. Rafael Palmeiro's back. Yadier Molina's busted. The Team of Rivals podcast starts now.
Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. So crazy, folks. So crazy. There's a drive. Way back. It might be. It could be. Playing a high drive into left. Back towards the creek. He's at the track. He has it. And the Cardinals world champion for 2011. A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it, go to Rizzo. It's in time, and the Chicago Cubs win the World Series.
This is the Team of Rivals podcast. No insiders, no anonymous sources, just passionate analysis from the bleacher seats. Here are your hosts, Ron Nuttall and Peter Geddes.
Only this time it's not Ron, at least not Ron at this point, because he's in the other room dealing with some stuff. I can't wait to get the lowdown on just who crossed Dad this evening. Elliott, how you been, man?
Good. It's been a roller coaster last week of baseball, from seeing red, literally and figuratively, to having a good beginning part of the week. So
yeah, interesting just how things developed here.
It always helps when you play the Marlins.
Yeah, it does, with the wind blowing out, howling out.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, man. This was it's been quite a week. So listen, before Ron gets back, why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about Theo Epstein and what he said this afternoon, man. My goodness.
Yeah. So I saw that he was on, and I went back and I listened to the interview, and I know there's 2 big names out there that are just crushing it, that a lot of Cubs fans have been, God, I can't believe we got rid of these guys. You know, they were going to be part of the future. Well, that not necessarily was the case. Gleyber Torres and Eloy Jimenez, 2 top prospects that the Cubs had been bringing up through their system, were drafted when they were 16. These were the first international draft picks that the Epstein and company had gone after when they had took over the Cubs in 2011. And apparently the big picture for Eloy Jimenez and Gleyber Torres was those guys were going to be pieces that were always probably going to be traded away to either get the Cubs a piece to win a World Series or to bring in. And it was just interesting to hear Theo's thoughts about it, that's how far out this guy looks. And it's just, we're, as Cubs fans, we are very fortunate for the guy that we have in charge. You're muted.
Yeah, I was stunned when I saw that headline that basically Theo in the front office kind of never figured that Gleyber and Eloy would see a minute with the Cubs. And I think that their thinking probably was if they did, then something had gone horribly wrong.
Right.
Because there were too many players ahead of them who were going to block their path to getting to the majors. So that was fascinating, man, that they always looked at the 2 of them as trade chips. And I think one of the interesting quotes that I saw, and I know I'm paraphrasing it, but it was, every time that we see that they're doing well in the minors, and eventually when they're going to do well on the south side of the city, we'll just look at our World Series rings. So
right. And another thing he said that was really super interesting is it's a testament to the scouts that we have, the coaches that we have down in the minor leagues, and just the way that we groom players. And other teams will look at that and be like, okay, these guys know how to grow players. Maybe what I'm getting from them isn't what I think I'm getting, or something along that lines. It was super interesting to listen to him talk that way about the farm system, and the fact that right now they're looking at rebuilding that farm system. They know, everybody knows right now that there's only a few highly touted prospects down there right now. One of them I hope makes it up this year at Adbert, but
I think it would be a stunning turn of events if he doesn't make his debut this year, just at the rate that he's developed. And also, you're going to have they already have a couple scheduled already. You're going to have double headers. You're going to have long runs where there are no days off. I think, what did I read just today? I think it's 10 or 11 games in 10 days, something like that, because they've got 2 makeups.
Yeah. I would love to see him pitch against the Braves. I hope they bring him up for that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
For one of those games. So, I thought that was an interesting late and listen this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely a late breaking development. And actually, you know what? Since we've kind of wrapped this part up, we should mention, for those of you who are joining us, first, thanks for being here tonight. 2, we're sorry that you haven't gotten to see Ron's mug quite yet, but he'll be back soon enough. And 3, obviously, you can find us everywhere on the internet. Obviously, we have the website, teamofrivalspodcast.com. Right at the top of the page, you can find a link to the team store on Zazzle. You can find us on Facebook just look for Team of Rivals Podcast, on Twitter at Team of Rivals Pod, and on Instagram at Team of Rivals Podcast. Man, there's actually been and hit on it in the intro. There has been a lot that has happened this week.
Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy, weird week since last Thursday when we were together.
If anything, it's been a weird last couple of days, right? Because coming out of the weekend, I thought, and I know that it was going to make Ron queasy. 1, because just of the nature of the injury, but 2, because I knew that I wouldn't be able to stop saying balls. But you really would have thought that all we were going to talk about was the Cubs just getting hammered in the series against the Cardinals, and not hammered in the good way, and also Yadi's injury. But that almost has, both of those have taken a back seat just because so much has happened this week. I mean, the Cardinals fell flat on their face against the Twins, and obviously we'll get into that when Ron gets back. The Cubs launched against the Marlins, but then Carlos Martinez goes on the DL today. Clayton Kershaw has gone on the DL with biceps tendonitis, and I want to get into that when Ron gets back. Because
you know what? I didn't see that because I thought I was watching MLB TV yesterday, and they said, "Oh, good sign, Clayton Kershaw playing catch out in the field today." But that's news to me. So
yeah, I think it was yesterday that it was officially released, and there are a lot of people who are concerned because the bicep is connected to the shoulder, and that's not something you want injured on a pitcher.
No.
And if he doesn't make it onto the market, that changes things drastically.
Yep.
Because if he's injured, if he's not able to come back, then there's no way he opts out. And if he doesn't opt out, the Dodgers, I think, become very big players on the market. But we can save that until Ron gets back. But I mean, still, you got the Mets batting out of order yesterday. The machine gets his 3,000th hit. I mean, my goodness, there's been a lot going on.
And, and I don't know if you were watching those games, but I threw on the Angels games because 3,000 hits is a big deal.
It's a big freaking deal.
And I tell you what, and I was a little disappointed in the celebration that his teammates had for him. I mean, it's like he hit it and they like walked out there just like, yay, high fives, good job. Okay, let's get back to it. It's just like, come on, man. This guy, this is the end of getting towards the end of his career. He's hit over 600 home runs. He's got 3,000 hits. There's four guys ahead of him that have done that. So I mean, you gotta celebrate that a little bit more than what you. And maybe they did later. Maybe it's like, hey, we're in the middle of the game. Let's go out, slap butts, and get back in the dugout and get this game done. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Still, Ron absolutely nailed it. He said it was like they were told that they had to go out. You know,
when it's like when you're being told you got to say sorry to someone even though you don't want to. It's like, do I have to?
Yeah, exactly. Here it is. Teammates look like when you force kids to apologize to another kid for hitting them and tell them to hug.
There you go. brothers or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely nailed it. You know, they did not seem thrilled, and I don't think that it's. I'm going to guess it's not that Albert's a bad teammate. It's just that they don't know him.
Yeah,
they're relatively they're a new team. They don't know him anything, and obviously there's no affection for him from the Anaheim fans because he's just a mercenary for them. I think it would have been different if it had happened in St. Louis.
Oh yeah, it would have been they would have stopped everything. There would have been
and the team, even if he was with the Angels, right? Let's say the Angels are on the road and they're playing in St. Louis. I think they would have gotten caught up in the moment because the crowd would have been caught up in it, even though he was on the other team.
I mean, he spent 10 years of his career there. I mean, absolutely. I mean, Cardinals fans still love Albert Pujols, even though he did leave. There's an affection there for him.
I don't think it's an exaggeration at all to say that for a time there he was arguably the best player in baseball. I mean, he wasn't Mike Trout, but still the damage that he could do when he came to the plate. And also at the time he was a good first baseman. He was very solid defensively. See him fall so far, so fast. I think it probably stings a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think it would stung fans too because it was quick. I felt like it was a quick drop off to being at his peak performance, and then all of a sudden it's like he went from 30 to 40 or 38 in a season.
Absolutely. All right, so let's do this until we can get Ron back. We can take something of a Cubs-centric view of things. What's your take on the last week? I mean, between getting swept by the Cardinals and then turning around and sweeping the Marlins.
Let's start with the Cardinals.
Bad news first.
Bad news first, and we can end on a high note. Very, very disappointing from pitchers and pitching being executed. Too many walks, hit by pitches. Cardinals did damage when they took advantage of the walks and the hit by pitches when they needed to. I think that's the biggest difference in the weekend. I think that is the reason why I felt like the Cubs should have taken 2 out of 3 in this series, and I think that's why I felt that it hurt so bad, and I think that's why fans reacted the way that they did, and all the doom boners were out last weekend. Was because there should have been 2 wins. One of them, absolutely, that was the Cardinals game. They played better, but I felt like the Cubs just didn't execute. They didn't execute. So that's what it was. So the 2 walk-offs is just not executing the pitches and when they needed to be done.
Well, I don't know that I would agree with that. I don't know that it was necessarily the pitchers who didn't do their jobs. This Cubs offense, and I know I've talked about it ad nauseum already this season, and we're only about a quarter of the way in.
Yeah.
This offense is so feast or famine. And I certainly don't lay it all at the feet of Chili Davis. But this team starts out 0-1 more than any team in baseball. They are taking so many first pitch strikes, and obviously it's part of the scouting report because everybody is doing it against them. This was not, and it happened again against the Cardinals. And I think that's part of the reason why they're not, because they're 0-1, and now suddenly they're changing. I don't even know if I would say they're changing their plan of attack, but they're more tentative, they're more defensive when they're up, and you can't take an aggressive hack. You can't execute the way that you would. And so you end up taking weak defensive swings and getting weak contact or not getting contact at all. And you have what happened happen. Dexter Fowler did not crush that walk-off on Sunday night. That thing's an out more than half the time.
Hayward missed robbing that by inches.
Well, yeah. But I mean, even without that, in most ballparks, that's not a home run. He hit it to the absolute right part of the field to get it out. So it's hard for me to blame Luke Farrell for that. I think responsibility for that sweep lies far more at the feet of the offense. And I don't think it's Chili Davis, but man, I wonder what kind of a plan these guys have when they come to the plate, because I don't see one when I watch the games. They get up there and they take the first pitch. I don't know if they're trying to work the count or if they're just guessing wrong on that first pitch, but man, they're always starting behind and it's killing me.
Yeah, and that could be part of it too. But the annoying part was you played the Brewers and you won. You sweep them in a 4-game series, winning, by only scoring 3 runs. So you kind of had that expectation that, okay, if you can score 3 or 4 runs and your pitching does what it's supposed to do, you should be able to win. It always leaves a bad taste in my mouth losing to the Cardinals, though.
I agree.
Always.
I agree. And, Theo, I think probably addressed it earlier this week when he said everybody goes through slumps, but you don't notice it because usually they're picked up by their teammates. And it's rare that you'll see everybody on the team go through slumps. And what's throwing an even hotter spotlight on it is the fact that it's early in the season. So you have guys where if they drop 20 points later in the season, you're really not going to notice it because they're still going to have a respectable number on their slash lines. But right now, Anthony Rizzo is hitting under 200. You notice that. But it also doesn't take much for him to move all of his numbers up. I mean, it takes one big day like yesterday, and all of a sudden, his entire slash line moves. So,
or 3 games notching a couple of hits a game, like he did against the Marlins, and now he is above 200.
Right.
And so, you saw Rizzo's numbers increase. You saw Russell's numbers increase.
Wilson Contreras finally started finding holes.
Right. And I was looking into some of Wilson's numbers. His BABIP is way under league average right now. And he's had some tough luck. He has been barreling some balls the last, I'd say, 5 games, and just hadn't been finding any holes. And they finally started to drop for him against Miami. So
I was kind of hoping that Ron would be back for this, but I think I definitely want to at least start the conversation, and we can certainly come back to it when Ron gets on because he can give a perspective of having been a ball player. But what are your thoughts on the whole lineup angst that has come up the last couple of days? Obviously, Joe doesn't think that it's a sophisticated conversation, but we're anything but sophisticated here on this podcast. So.
What did he say? He's something about, he didn't say you can kiss my ass, or something like that, but he said something along that line. Somebody asked him about constantly tinkering with the lineup. I don't know why people are surprised by this. He's been doing it the last few years. I
don't think that anybody's surprised by it. I just think that because people have been second guessing him since he came to the Cubs, particularly it's been more about his bullpen usage than it has been about the lineups. But I think that it's just been thrown in sharp relief because they haven't been hitting, and also because, I think that the media is starting to question it now, whereas they didn't in the first 3 years. They weren't as aggressive on the lineup question. So what do you think? Do you think it's an issue or no?
I don't think so. I mean, it doesn't seem to bother the players. I mean, they're always being asked. They're like, I'll hit wherever they put me. I'll hit where I need to hit. As long as I get in at bat, or if I'm in the lineup, I'll do whatever, the team needs me to do. I mean, it's got to be nice for Bryant and Rizzo because they're usually in their same spots most of the time. But it's always he's playing matchups. He's putting the hot hitters up at top. He's putting some of the other guys down in the lineup, so maybe they'll see some better pitches. I mean, I understand kind of why he does it, so it doesn't really bother me as much.
I think that Joe's reaction to it, I think, conflates a couple of issues, and if you got into it with the people who are questioning his decisions, I think that you can probably break it down. I don't know that there are many people who are questioning where he puts people in the field. The defense certainly isn't a question. I mean, you've got your best right fielder in, and he misplays a handful of plays over the course of a series. That's unusual.
Yeah, those were anomalies for Hayward. Right. I thought I saw somebody say something about, now his defense is regressing. We should trade him now or whatever. It's like
you're not going to be able to trade him.
The dude had a couple of mishaps.
Right.
A couple of them looked like he lost balls in the light or the sun or whatever. Okay, he's still one of the most elite right fielders in the game
defensively.
Yeah.
But if he's not,
then that's another question.
Albatross.
Yes.
Right. But so anyway, the point I was getting to is that I don't think anybody's questioning him, playing Chris Bryant in right field one day and putting Zobrist in right another day. Absolutely. You understand you have a bunch of versatile players. You want to get everybody time. The days of the same 8 players playing 150 plus games a year are long past. And he's probably right about that. They never should have been. There are ways to optimize your players' use so that they all are able to contribute. And I'm not even advocating for the exact same lineup every day, but I have to think, and this is where I want to get Ron's take. I have to think that moving guys up and down in the order, and really the only guys who are largely insulated from it are Bryant and Rizzo, and that's it. But I have to think that moving guys up and down in the order messes with their heads because they don't know what they're supposed to be, right? Is Schwarber supposed to be a run producer who's driving in runs, or is he supposed to be setting the table and getting on base? He doesn't know from day to day. Rizzo knows, other than when Joe does a fluke one-off and puts him at the top. And his reasoning for that was just stupid.
I didn't think that was
fun.
Necessary.
Come on.
Right.
Come on.
I didn't think it was necessary to put Rizzo at the top of the lineup with him struggling.
No.
You leave him where he's at.
Right.
You let him get right because Rizzo's gonna hit. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows, yes, he's struggling, but he's gonna start hitting.
There is no argument that Joe could make that would have convinced me that he honestly thought that he was putting out his best lineup that day. And by best lineup, I don't mean the best available players. I mean the best alignment of those players from 1 through 8,
right,
based on who he was going to start the game with. I have no qualms with who he starts the games with. I think he does a fine job of putting together the teams that start from day to day. The question, the problem I have is Javi Baez your 2? So that he's a table setter, or is he your 5 or your 6? So he's driving in runs. Those are 2 very different approaches to the plate. Mm-hmm. And these are young guys. At least this is the way that I look at it. And that's something I think that we all forget, is that they are young guys. They're going to struggle because they're all in their early to mid 20s. A lot of them anyway are in their early to mid 20s. But they don't have a lot of experience at the major league level. It'd be one thing if you were doing this with a bunch of veterans who had, 7-10 years in the majors, and they can pretty much cruise and they can adjust to anything that you throw at them because they've been through almost every situation. But, these are young guys. And if you're telling them that, for the next 5 games, I'm going to need you to be a run producer. I need you to drive in runs. And then for 3 games after that, I need you to be at the top and I need you to set the table and to get on base so that the big guys can drive you in. Oh, and then I need you at the bottom of the lineup because you're kind of struggling and we just need somebody to make contact and to hopefully keep the line moving. You don't know what you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that I have with his constant tinkering with the lineups. And when I say tinkering with the lineups, it's moving players up and down within the lineup. I couldn't care less about who's playing center field today. Just be consistent with where you bat them in the lineup.
No, from a player's point of view, do you think that they're thinking that in depth out of it, or are they just going out there? All right, I'm going to work my process. I'm just trying to get hits. I mean that could be the thing too. In moving these guys down in the lineup when they're struggling, kind of takes some of the pressure off them to maybe perform well, or be that guy that's gonna hit a home run or whatever, and they can work their process without that pressure of being at the top of the order. I mean, you can look at it from either side, I think. So, and I think that's why he drops guys down sometimes and move guys up when they're hitting well. When you had, your Almora or Almago, working the 1-2 punch with Almora Jr. and Baez. I mean, it worked great because Almora would get on base, Baez would hit a double, and usually bring him home for that, those couple of series that they were just on fire. So, and are those guys going to be the 1 and 2 for the remainder of the season?
Certainly doesn't sound like it.
Or most of the time. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Joe is going to absolutely tinker with that lineup constantly.
Yep.
And I know there's some people that are going to be like, well, I want Almora and Baez at the top of the lineup. They create havoc and they create on the bases, and they're, those guys are fire, and they get on and they get up in front of Bryant and Rizzo. But at the same time, I mean, those two guys were the only ones producing for a little while because Bryant and Rizzo were both struggling. So they were creating the offense, and that's why we were seeing these two runs, 3 runs per game for a couple of weeks. So
yeah, I will tell you, I'm not going to get too excited about what they just did against the Marlins because 1, it was against the Marlins. And 2, you couldn't have ordered much better baseball weather. All credit to the Cubs pitching staff.
Yeah.
To have limited the Marlins in the way that the Marlins pitching staff couldn't limit the Cubs because they were playing under the same conditions. And the Cubs pitching staff locked them down. They weren't able to take advantage of the wind howling out, and the Cubs did.
And I got to eat my text that I sent about the other day when Sang started the game, and I'm just like, great. This feels like a throwaway game. He's got like a 90 ERA down in AAA Iowa, and this is what he is. He's gonna give up a shit ton of runs, and and then we're gonna blow through our bullpen.
The funny thing is, it ended up actually being a bullpen game. It's just that you never expected that Sang would be like any other bullpen pitcher that you would have put in there. Probably would have only gotten 2 or 3 innings. So he got exactly what you would have gotten out of everybody else because Monty wasn't going to pitch, or he wasn't at least going to have an extended outing.
No, because he had pitched the day before. So
right,
and he got in, I think 1.2 innings.
Right.
Yeah, he got 7 outs.
So there wasn't anybody else in the bullpen who was going to give you a long start.
No.
And everybody else in the minors. I think somebody's back to save us. I tell you, this guy knows how to make an entrance, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
It's only taken him a year and a half.
He's probably been searching for this song for the last 10 minutes just to make an entrance.
How you doing, guys?
Everything okay there?
Good.
Did you whip some ass?
No.
Why not?
Got my ass whipped.
Ooh, Ron was a bad boy, huh?
That's right. How you guys like this intro? It might be my intro from now on. Pete, I might let you start this thing off every time.
I think it's a little hot, but other than that, I like it.
Cardinal fans will appreciate it. And I'm back.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Hey, listen,
what did I miss?
I want to get your input on this because we were just talking about it.
All right.
Having played baseball, the only one of the 3 of us, who played at any kind of elite. You didn't play at any elite level, did you, Elliott?
I played through high school.
Okay. Ron was a high school all-star. Has he told you that?
I wasn't a high school all-star. Never.
Oh, come on.
I played on traveling teams all like I was
I did that.
pretty good. I played through traveling teams up until I was 13, and then I played all the way. I played in high school my freshman year. I mean, I was good, but then I took wrestling more serious, and I stopped playing baseball to wrestle during the spring. So I know. Hey,
wrestling.
I'm just gonna. I was waiting for that uncomfortable silence to just overwhelm you, Elliott.
Yeah, that's bad radio.
Hey, it was worth it. I toot my horn a little bit. I was a state champion.
You weren't the only one tooting your horn.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh
wow!
I'm impressed by this.
I took eighth, and that was eighth place in nationals too.
Wow, we're gonna have to.
Elliott has a mean side to him.
He does.
We didn't know this.
Ron, I was just talking with my guy today, and he's getting ready to finally re-record our intro. I'm gonna have to rewrite it.
State champion.
Here are your hosts, Ron, Pete, and what year?
1999.
And 1999, what state?
Illinois State Wrestling Champion.
Sandwich, Illinois.
Oh, wow. 1999 Illinois State Wrestling Champion, Elliott Dewey.
Yeah.
Should be L. L sounds tougher. L Dewey.
Yeah, L Dewey.
Anyway, back to the point. See, Ron, you come back and we can't stay on point. All right, so
exactly.
Ian and I were talking about Madden's constant tinkering with the lineup, and here's the issue I have with it. And having played baseball for so many years, I figured would have some input on that. Does it mess with your head not knowing what kind of hitter you're supposed to be from day to day, not knowing if you're supposed to be a table setter or a run producer, and not finding out until you get into the ballpark? Or do you think that anybody who's at this level can pretty much compartmentalize that and just do their process?
Well, I can only really speak from, my high school days, my days in the military. When I played in college. Those guys play every single day, 162 games. We know how, the guys that do this professionally for a living, like that's their focus, right? And we know that some of them are superstitious. We know that routine's important. Knowing that, I would imagine for these guys that are into it like they are, that it does affect them more. And it's harder for them to, if I'm a 5-hole hitter, well, let's just say this: if I'm a 3-hole hitter and all of a sudden I'm putting the lead off, I have to think that it is a different approach. It is a different. Here's
Do you have somebody in mind?
Well, yeah, no, this is a case study though, right here. I mean, you look at Matt Carpenter, who had been established as a leadoff hitter. He tried to make him a 3-hole hitter. He changed his approach, and he has struggled since then, right? We can all agree, we know, because we see it right in the numbers, we see it in performance on a daily basis, that he has struggled ever since that move was made, right? So I think there's one piece of evidence. For me personally, I spent a majority of my time somewhere in the middle of the lineup, and then in the military, strangely enough, we played some good competition, guys, in the military. It wasn't just, hey, play, podunk base team from here. I mean, we played University of Hawaii's team. We played Hawaii Pacific University. So we didn't play, all rec league teams. I mean, some of the competition was better than what I faced in college. So I was moved into leadoff for a whole year, which I never batted. And I mean, look at me. I was never, even in the 90s or early 2000s, you don't look at me and go, that's a leadoff hitter. But I was put in a leadoff spot. It did change my approach, because instead of looking to drive runs home, I was looking to just do whatever I could to get on base. So I did change my approach that way. To me, it wasn't a negative effect. It was kind of cool to attack a game from a different angle. Now, there's no consequence to me failing. I was in the military. I was going to get a paycheck regardless, and I was going to be told what to do regardless. So I didn't really have much room to think about it. But to me, I thought it was kind of cool playing a different role, as little as we did it compared to what professionals do. So that doesn't really answer your question. But for me, it never had an impact. I would imagine for these guys, it has pretty severe impact, not knowing day in and day out.
All right. Thanks. Just curious.
Sure.
So let's get your take on the last week of baseball from the Arch City, man. It's been feast or famine.
Yeah, it really has been. And I know we talked last week about, feast or famine as far as bats connecting to ball.
But not balls connecting to balls.
No, that's a whole different thing. My God. You probably thought I was being a dick earlier via text talking about, like, are we really going to talk about this? I'm like, no, it actually makes me squeamish. I've never had, I mean, none of us, very few people on this earth have ever been hit in the nuts with a 102-mile-an-hour fastball. And, but playing baseball, has it happened? Have I been hit before in that area? Yeah, and it sucks, right? You take a bad bounce at first base, where I spent a lot of time in high school, and it doesn't feel good, but but just I can't imagine that amount of velocity. And Yadier Molina is a tough guy. I think you guys will even admit that. And to see him crumple like that on the ground, that had to be just a paralyzing. I've seen people react less to being tased on you. So, I mean, that had to just be a killer pain that I couldn't even imagine, would never want to imagine. So this week in baseball. So it started off, we had both Chicago teams in town. The result, the wins loss is the most important thing. I was shocked that they went 5-0. I thought that the Cardinals have a chance to take 2 or 3. Sure. Would I put any money down that they're going to sweep? No. I wouldn't have put money on either team to sweep. I think we all agreed on that last week as well. But
hey, does Braden get to keep his game device, considering that he was absolutely wrong? Take it away from him.
The fact that all of us were wrong probably buys him. He can kick the can down the road on that a little bit longer, I think. Just talk about the Cubs series, right? The White Sox series.
Yeah.
I don't really remember much from that because I wasn't paying attention to that. But the Cubs series was, you look at the result and go, wow, they swept. That must have been a dominant series, and it was not. I mean, we had the first game decided by a run. The last game, the second game went into extra innings. The third game went into extra innings, right? So these are all close games. It could have went either way. The Cardinals just happened to take advantage of the right situation at the right time, or made the right play at the right time. A ball fell when it shouldn't have. So this series could have went either way. But if you look at just production of key players in their lineup, that's what really sticks out. And then that really stuck out, the 2 games against Minnesota, which were just god awful. I mean, I think the Memphis team brought up, and replacing the MLB roster Cardinals for that 2 game.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. This will be fun. Ron, I hope you're queuing up your entry music again.
I got a feeling we're going to see his little thing drop out.
Okay, ready now? It's Cubs time.
No, jeez, you're gonna lose all the Cardinals fans.
Nothing has worked tonight. Nothing has worked tonight. Nothing. Nothing. I don't even know where I left off.
I just got you some new entry music, man.
Yeah, I heard that.
I serenaded our YouTube audience. I sang your song first. Well, I hummed your song first, but
all right. Well,
anyway,
quickly here.
Back to
I'll just final thought on the Cardinals' whole last homestand. Right, it was a bottle rocket that went, and usually they end with a nice, fantastic burst. This ended in a fart. It went. This went. There. There's my thought on the last week of baseball.
Hey, but you guys are leading in San Diego right now, right? Last I checked.
Yeah, there's one team I want to beat the shit out of all year long. Those rat bastards. Hey, you know what? You shouldn't even call it the Padres. The Cardinals are playing their Rule 5 team that was part of their system at one point.
Their 3.5 A team. Is that it?
Yes. Yeah. No, not even that. Because a couple they've pilfered. They didn't even make it to AAA yet. They were like single A ball, 2A. They were so low in their system and so new that I don't think Machado thought there's any way nobody's gonna keep a guy that's only had a rookie league or single A under their belt. They're not gonna keep them on the major league roster all year. But hey, it's the Padres.
I'm gonna shock you with something, Ron.
Yep.
It's the top of the third. Matt Carpenter's up. He's got a 2-1 count. Now, here's the thing that's going to surprise you. He struck out in his first at bat.
I haven't checked in on the. Hold on. I'm checking in now. Are you okay? They are up 1-0. Okay, I thought it was going to be.
Why would I lie to you?
I don't know, man. Because it's you. So Carpenter's batting second, and I don't see Jed Jerko. I don't see Jed Jerko
not in the game.
I'm pretty sure most of Cardinals Twitter, as in Cardinal fans Twitter, was all about Matt Carpenter the last 4 days of he should be sent down to the minors, and
until tonight's
can't be for one.
Until tonight's lineup was announced, at which point they switched to why is Jed Jerko not in this game?
I just said that, right? Yeah. But, I mean,
he just needs to keep grinding. He just needs to keep grinding at bats. He'll get some playing time.
I get it that perhaps Jerko's the type of player that the more he's exposed, the less effective he's going to be. But I don't know whatever happened to going with the hot hand, which was actually something La Russa was pretty darn good at. You guys, I don't know if you ever took note of that, Pete, but if there was anybody on his bench that was a hot streak, La Russa rode them until they weren't, and he found a place for him in that lineup. And
what a novel approach,
isn't it? It was groundbreaking. But
what you're saying? Let me make sure that I understand this. Being a Cubs fan and all. Yeah. So what you're saying is that when you have a player who's playing well,
yes,
you continue to play them.
I think that's a pretty good general rule.
Huh.
I would.
Huh.
Okay, I missed something earlier.
I'm going to have to take that one under advisement.
Okay. Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna have to think this one over.
All right, Elliott. Anyway, so I must have missed something earlier. Where's this guy going with this story, or is he just his ass?
He's being a wise ass.
Yeah.
Considering that Matt Carpenter just struck out again.
Oh, why am I laughing at that? I am, though.
Because you're looking forward to Cardinals Twitter's response.
It's going to be bad too. I mean, the bad thing about it is that, Carpenter's history, especially early. I mean, he was asked to do a lot of different things. I think naturally he came up as a third baseman, then he converted over to a second baseman. I don't know if he's ever played any outfield or not, and then eventually became a first baseman. He's done everything they've asked him to, so you feel bad for the guy. But the way this year is going, the fact that he's batting 150 now, he just dropped another point. He's playing third base tonight, which is a position that Jerko can play just as well, if not better defensively. And he's not in there. This is why I pointed out La Russa. La Russa is one of those managers. Maybe that's what most of the good ones or halfway decent managers will do. But if I contrast him with what Matheny does, that's the only reason I pointed out, Pete, is that La Russa is much better at doing this than Mike Matheny is ever going to be. Mike Matheny, I think, has he has a stubborn loyalty to people, and you've already seen where, John Mozeliak has had to step in and deal a guy because the manager just won't quit running him out there. I don't know what you're not going to get anything for Carpenter now. But yeah, and another thing to take away from that last series, guys, is that, I guess the one besides winning 3 in a row, which is great. But you lose 2 of your most productive bats in the lineup when you have 3 guys that should be productive that just aren't. Jerko. Carpenter, probably the biggest offender. Fowler's not far behind. Fowler's now ahead of him by 1 1/100th of a percentage point. And then you've got Ozuna, who hasn't taken off yet. Those 3, if any one of those 3 are even on average, having an average year, the lineup probably looks different. And when you lose Pham and Molina around that, you're like, oh crap, how are we going to win anything? They still managed to pull it out.
Who of those 3 are you most concerned about?
I would be most concerned about Ozuna because the biggest thing they have, and here's why, the biggest thing they have missed for years now is a presence in the middle of the lineup. And if he doesn't come through, then that gaping hole that's been there for years is going to remain there. They have an answer for Carpenter. It is called Jed Jerko. They have a lot of answers in the minor leagues that they could test out, and Dexter Fowler not performing. Harrison Bader has made it easier for them to let Pham heal. Though Pham's in the lineup tonight, I'm kind of surprised. Maybe he's back to 100%. But Harrison Bader has played well enough to where they could afford for a few days to let Pham rest. If Fowler is slumping and they need to sit him down for a couple games, I'm fine with Harrison Bader being in there. And they've got a minor league system that if they totally bottoms out, that outfield does. They have depth in the minor league and outfielders, which might be a good reason, or maybe not the reason they were thinking, but it might be lucky they didn't have to deal most of those guys away, because we all talked about the Cardinals logjam in the offseason in the outfield. Might be a good thing to have some of those guys now. So they have answers. The one answer they don't have is an impact cleanup number 3 hitter, and if Ozuna bottoms out, that would be the one I'd be most concerned with. But he's batting 252, so it's not like devastating yet.
So if it gets to that point, do they just release Fowler and Carpenter and eat the money? Because they're not going to get anything for them.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I mean, if they've got a couple guys in the minor league, if you got a guy like Tyler O'Neill down there, you've got Adolis Garcia. If they're ready to come up and they need to come up, yeah, what?
The Reds are looking for people. I mean, the shit they took Matt Harvey.
Yeah, they did. You know what? In the condition they're in, I don't blame them. I don't blame them for nice on him. They're paying him minimum, right? So what the hell? I mean, they're already like the worst record in baseball, so I don't blame them for doing that. Bring the Dark Knight to Cincinnati.
And they don't have to worry about him getting in trouble after games because there is no nightlife in Cincinnati. So
no, everything shuts down at 9 o'clock.
The bars on the Kentucky side stay up till 4 a.m., guys.
They do.
Don't tell Harvey that.
You got Hoffa House right across the river, and
yeah,
actually, you can tell Matt Harvey that anytime before he starts against the Cubs or the Cardinals. No. Just remind him that the bars across the river stay open till 4.
That's right.
Don't worry, the game's not till 1 o'clock. You got plenty of time to.
All right, so we talked about Albert before you came on. You got anything to say about the machine?
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, the whole, the way the Angels were coming out of the dugout was just, it felt sad. It felt like, when you force 2 young boys on the playground that just got into a fight to go up and hug it out. That's what it felt like to me. It just felt like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll jog out here, lackadaisical jog out here. We'll all congratulate him. It just, and of course, it didn't happen in Angel Stadium. It could have been a whole different story there. But it just didn't really feel that. Just the scenery didn't feel that special.
Elliott and I were talking about it obviously before you got on there, and I speculated. I wonder if part of it, I don't think Albert's a bad teammate. He doesn't seem to have that reputation. Mm-hmm. I just think that he had the great moments of his career in St. Louis, and the Angels fans aren't attached to him. So why would his teammates feel any differently? Now, I think that it had fate had a hand in this, and it had been an interleague series against the Cardinals in St. Louis, they would have come streaming out, because the stadium would have lost its mind, because you guys all still have very fond memories of Albert. And I think that the Angels would have gotten caught up in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have been as loud if he was a Cardinal and did it, but it certainly would have been. It would have been a mild eruption. I think people would have come around there. That would have been, that would have been storybook, of course. But you know what? We all expected he was going to reach this milestone at some point. So he did it. I mean, and I'm happy enough for the guy. I mean, I got over my sore butt, months after he left and went to the Angels, realizing that this was the best thing for the Cardinals. And probably a much better thing for him to go over to the American League, because he would not have made the length of that contract staying in the National League. I just don't see how it would have happened. So, no hard feelings here. I mean, the Cardinals benefited more by him walking away. However, the opportunity for any of us to have a player like him, or you guys are going to have to face that same thing with maybe Chris Bryant. The opportunity to keep a player like that in your organization, so they could have their statue and their everything, in your ballpark, it's just so rare these days. That's the disappointing thing. We didn't have our modern era Stan Musial stick around. And we've got
Yachty.
We have Yachty. It's different. I mean, he'll be beloved there. He'll have a statue outside of it too. One of the smaller ones next to Ozzie or Bob Gibson, which it's not bad company, right? It is different with Yachty. Albert was like, when he was in his prime, having his great years, I mean, he transcended everybody else. And for him to had finished his career in St. Louis would have been something really special. However, this is the way things work out. It was better that he moved on, and they didn't have that financial commitment. It's really, it would be hard to speculate where they'd be right now, paying him what the Angels are going to be paying him, over the next 4 years.
It'll be interesting how things finish with Yachty, because it's completely unlikely that he's going to hit any of the milestones, at least as far as hitting is concerned, that would be a cause for celebration. Yeah. He's not going to get 3,000 hits. He's not going to get 500 home runs. It very well may be that the only opportunity that Cardinals fans have to recognize him is when he retires.
Yeah, I think you're right. The big thing would obviously be if they can get back deep into the postseason and win something. I mean, that would be the way, what everybody I think would hope. That's how it would go. But yeah, you're right, Pete. There's not going to be major, milestones, maybe innings caught, but nobody would know that unless the media told us. Yeah. So they're two different things.
I mean, you can look at like what the Cubs kind of did with David Ross, and that kind of be like something that maybe the Cardinals players could do for Yachty in his last year. Do some things for him, kind of, scrapbook it online with an Instagram account or a Facebook account or something like that. I'm sure the Cardinals media may do some stuff for PR guys throughout the year. So I mean, Ross had one of the best, going out in style that I think I've ever seen for anybody who knew that they were retiring that year. And he hit his 100th, only had 100 home runs at the end of his career.
Right. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle all that, and wonder what kind of condition the team will be in too. Hey, look, if that team's like, what if they're on the verge of a rebuild? What if they're just floundering and it'll be a little less? Well, maybe that'll be the one thing that the fans and everybody has to focus on. So who knows what's going to happen by the time he's at the end of this thing. But, if Bernie Miklasz show, he's on 101 ESPN there in St. Louis, he was talking about this very same thing. And how you measure the impact of Yachty is it's not necessarily their record, right? If you look at their record when he's been out, they've had a lower win percentage, but it's not like you would think. It's not like some Cardinal fans that make you think like, oh God, our winning percentage goes down to 300 when he's not in there. It's not like that. Right. But if you look at the effect on the pitching staff, that is a different thing. His
pitch framing is unbelievable compared to, he gets calls. I found myself yelling at the TV. I'm like, he called the same shit for Yachty last inning. Why can't you?
There was a really interesting breakdown on Twitter, and I'm completely blanking on who it was, but they did, and obviously it's small sample size, but they did an analysis of Carson Kelly's receiving. And he gets lauded for his receiving, but it looks like where he really struggles is with catching breaking pitches at the bottom of the zone. He has a real hard time framing those up and ends up a lot of times losing strikes for his pitchers. And that's definitely one of the areas where Yachty excels is, man, if it's at the bottom of the zone, his wrists are so quick, he's snapping everything back up into the zone.
It'd be interesting to see, like, go back and was Yachty perfect at that when he was young? Or was that something he developed through a few years? I mean, imagine catching a guy like Adam Wainwright, right, who had that big hook when he was in his prime that, could freeze people. I'm sure that will hopefully that would develop over time. He's got the right people around him. I mean, he's got Yachty on bed rest right now, watching him play. No doubt, Yachty is watching every one of these games, and he's watching Carson Kelly and seeing what he's doing. And so, if that's true, and it sounds like it certainly is, I'm sure that what better. Really, what better instruction to have than one of the better, defensive catchers, behind you watching what you're doing. And then even your coach, Mike Matheny, was the same way. He was a pretty good catcher himself. I haven't, the thing is with Carson Kelly, it's not, he has to prove himself right now with his bat. And I say no. With Yadier being out of the lineup, I think I put the onus more on the three that we talked about before that aren't performing. Fowler, Carpenter, Ozuna. You pick up Yadi's slack.
Yep.
Carson Kelly's not supposed to do that. He is there for his defense. That's what they need him for. So if Carson Kelly's going to prove himself right now, he's going to play as best he can defensively. I would not judge him on his bat at this point in time. I wouldn't judge the team's performance on his bat alone. I wouldn't hang it on him. His job's there to play defense and handle that pitching staff, manage those games. The other guys need to step it up and pick up his Yachty slack for the bat. Don't put that on Kelly.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So speaking of milestones,
very,
very interesting one developed just today. And Ron, I know that you're going to be excited to talk about this.
Sure.
Rafael Palmeiro is back.
Oh, he's back, right? And what was that team? I saw that you put that out on the share site there. Who is
the
it?
Cleburne Railroaders.
Huh? Never heard of them.
Yeah, they're an indie league team. He's playing with his son. He's playing baseball with his son. Get your head out of the gutter there.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Not you, Elliott. I heard.
No, I got it.
Are they gonna have a Ken Griffey Jr. moment where they go homer back to back?
Yeah, except I don't think it's going to be nearly as poetic because they were both major league players.
Oh, sure it will. We'll get the radio call on that. We'll play it on here. I'm sure they'll give it to us. All right, so he's playing professional-ish.
He's playing in Cleburne, Texas.
Yeah.
Which I imagine is probably somewhere near Dallas, since it was reported in the Dallas Morning News.
Mm-hmm.
So glad to have him back. Just south. Looks like it's maybe about an hour south of Fort Worth.
All right. Well, who cares?
And next.
I got to talk. So. It's happened a few games in the. Oh, by the way, I gotta say this. So my 7-8-year-old rookie league team in the Cal Ripken League out here, they have pulled off their 7th win in a row. 6 of those were by the mercy rule, so they are dominating that pitching machine.
Launch angle.
They're bringing it.
You guys are all about launch angle and exit velocity.
No, I'm actually about step towards the pitcher when you swing. Don't look. You shouldn't be looking at me coaching you on third base after you swing. You should be looking at the pitcher, eyes on the ball, chin shoulder to shoulder. No, I actually have no. I wouldn't even know how to begin to explain. Hey, you see this protractor I have here? See that angle right there? That's what you need to be going for, kid. You see that thing coming into your street? You need to have your wrist this way. You need to have the bat head here. No.
Well, you know what you could do? You could just replay the interview between Chris Bryant and Alex Rodriguez that happened during the game the other night.
Those kids, if I could get them to stop playing in the dirt when I'm actually trying to talk to them, that'd be cool. But no, so I had to give them a shout out. I mean, they pulled out, they ripped off 7 wins in a row. We were the 2nd seed going into the tournament. We get a bye. So it's just awesome. Just awesome. Great kids. Except for a couple of them. One of my son's one of those couple of them.
I was going to say, except for Will, right?
No, it's Sam. It's Sam.
Oh God!
Is he picking grass and dandelions out in the baseball?
No,
field?
he's eating.
Will would eat dirt. Sam won't eat dirt. Yeah,
because it's too dirty.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that would be a reason. But anyway, so my kids, my team hasn't batted out of order because I got another parent who helps them. A parent helps 7 or 8-year-olds, bat in the right order.
Yeah.
And, we've had a couple teams this year where they've messed it up, but the coach hollers over at me. I'm like, I don't care. Evidently, the Mets just figured that out this week.
Yeah.
Who's had a rougher start to the season there? The Mets or the Philadelphia Phillies manager?
Gabe Kapler. Yeah. I don't know. That's yeah, well, I'd say who had the tougher job. I would have to say Mickey Callaway has had the tougher job. Imagine dealing with Matt Harvey and his comments to the media going through all this versus Gabe Kapler, who Well, yeah, Philadelphia's not expected to be there yet, but they were expected to show improvement. I'd say Callaway's had the tougher job. I don't know. You guys might disagree.
Boy, I don't know, man, because for a stretch there, and I just have to say, how shocking that the Mets pitching staff has not been, their starting staff has not been able to make it through the entire season without injury and without any kind of drama. That's
shocking.
That's a stunning development that we've never seen before.
Yeah, it is. I mean, who would have thunk it, right?
Yeah, they started out, what was it, 19-1, and I think they've gone something like 4-14 since, something like that. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's called reality, Pete.
Yep, exactly.
Who hasn't realized reality yet? It's Atlanta still, but
wow,
and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, right. You're right.
I think Pittsburgh's date with reality is coming much sooner than
I think so
than
too.
The Pirates, or I'm sorry, than the Braves. The Braves are for real, man.
They have got young guy up, and he looks
new
good.
Guy, yeah,
Acuna.
Oh man.
He's something else, man.
Yep. Quick bat.
He is.
And they might have another one coming up here pretty soon. So what's his name? Read about it today. I'm not going to look for it. Yeah, I'm not good at that. I can't look for it on iPad, Pete. You go punch it up. Yeah, so see, the Mets batting out of order. I don't know how the hell that happens in the big leagues, but it happened. I don't in recent memory remember hearing about anything like that, or the only thing I can relate it to is La Russa calling the bullpen during the World Series in Texas and the wrong guy coming out. and La Russa has him in there to intentionally walk a guy and then calls the bullpen for the guy he really wanted. And, basically you spin a pitcher on an intentional walk.
Hey, how about Matheny burning a guy during the Cubs series just to walk out to get called back in and then done?
Yeah, Cardinals Twitter was really happy about that one.
But
because I'm watching the game, I'm like, what? I'm like,
once he's announced, right, and then they've got it. Yeah. Well, if there's anything he picked up from La Russa habits, and I praised him earlier for being wise enough to stick just with the guy who's hot, instead of showing loyalty to who you want to show loyalty to, which is, I think, Matheny's one of his weaknesses. La Russa was fantastic about burning through his entire bench and bullpen like lightning quick. Like by the 10th inning, he's got most of everybody spent because he did so many double switches and changes throughout the game that by the time you got into extras, you're like, shit, there's nobody left. So I don't have his extra inning record in front of me, but it seemed like more times than not that he's pretty much spent everybody by the time you got late.
You have a lot of position guys pitching.
On occasion, yeah. He played with the Cubs too. Mathers. He pitched. Well, Joe Mathers. Joe Mathers. Yeah, had played for the Cardinals. It's actually a game I was at against the Mets, and it went scoreless through like 17 innings.
Oh Jesus!
So Joe Mathers throwing. We actually, my wife and I went to dinner, and by the time dinner was over, the game was still going. But yeah, so yeah, on occasion, yes, there would be position player thrown in there, and I don't know if a position player has pitched under Matheny. It probably has happened. I just don't recall what it was. But yeah, no. We've seen it though, guys. I mean, a guy, they try to play a strategy, but they show a guy on deck, but he's not officially going to bat unless they announce him, and they let him be announced. And there was a pitching change, and now you just wasted a bench player. And so you go into those late games, and inevitably in an extra inning, when you need a real bat up there, you've got a pitcher coming up because you have nobody to hit for him. But yeah, it happens. Yes, and Cardinal Twitters blew up on that. But it happens. I've seen that happen before.
I just thought it was interesting because you don't normally see that where you got a guy that just gets burned before he even steps into the batter's box. So I just you'll see it. You'll see it. You're right. I mean, it's not too frequent, but it happens from time to time. Just one manager gets outsmarted by the other one. Yeah, it happens. But
according to the Cardinals Twitter, Matheny gets outsmarted by the other manager 99% of the time.
Yeah, no. That's
starting with putting Carpenter in the lineup.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, there'll be bashers out there, and I certainly have my issues with some of his in-game strategy. Bullpen, but moves like that too. Yes, I mean, I don't think others are going in there. Other managers are going there, going, boy, I got to really counter this guy. He's a really good chess player. No, they're not thinking of him like that.
Hey, so quick question. We haven't talked about the Yankees and the Red Sox yet. What's the deal?
What about the Yankees? Wait.
I mean, seriously, hold on.
Are we talking about like the Scranton and the Pawtucket teams?
Oh yeah, definitely.
No. Hone in on that, 'cause you brought it up. God damn it, Elliott.
This is another edition of Ron's Rants.
Yeah, I'm not going to go off too much here, but I mean, the way sometimes when you tune into the right station, you hear them start talking. You're like, are you guys just realizing this? Like, did the news just break? I mean, did the ticker come out and go, holy shit, the Yankees are on a winning streak? The way it's being presented is like those guys just figured it out. Like it just landed on them. It was a CNN news update.
Well, all their best baseball writers did go to The Athletic. So they might have a whole bunch of interns writing their pieces, and the only thing that they can fucking think about is Ohtani, New York, and Boston.
You know what I'd love? I would love. Is
there anything else going on?
No.
Apparently not.
Oh, Ohtani had a record batting practice home run at the Rangers Park, like a landmark. It was a landmark batting practice home run. Put that in your rocket.
And then he
threw on it.
I wonder if he uses a corked
innings in batting practice.
I wonder if he uses a corked bat during batting practice so that he can put on a show for defense.
Yeah, for defense.
For defense, I do everything I do. It's for defense.
I'm not sorry.
Baseball.
I'm sorry, but not sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry if I offended you,
but I'm not,
my friend. I make a mistake.
Carlos Martinez, 10-day DL. Let's go. I don't want to talk about the fucking Yankees or Red Sox or anybody East Coast or Ohtani or anything like that. I don't care.
Carlos Martinez, 10-day DL. Clayton Kershaw, bicep tendonitis. Baseball is not being very kind to starting pitchers this year, man.
No, they're not. So Carlos Martinez, they're going to have him out for a little more than a week. Not devastating. It's probably best. They're probably smart to put him on the DL. Let him sit out. His last outing wasn't.
Sounds like he's only going to miss one start.
Yeah, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. And that Memphis shuttle is working. And I think
looks like it's lining up. Looks like it's lining up for Alex Reyes to make a start somewhere around the end of the month.
Yes, great segue. So I mean, he has an oblique. Was it oblique? Oh, it was a lateral oblique, right?
Right. Yep.
So it doesn't sound like it's severe. He fine. It's rest. Let it heal. It's no big deal. And they can Flaherty, whoever they've got, can make another start. I still am baffled why Flaherty's not there. Wainwright made a rehab start in Springfield, looked good. So I'm sure he'll be back up there soon. So
yeah, I think he threw a bullpen today, and they're going to make a decision tomorrow, depending on how he feels.
Yeah, well, he'll feel fine.
Yeah,
he'll feel fine.
Just hope he's not unlucky, like Matt Carpenter. That's what your manager said. Your manager said Carp's just been unlucky lately.
Oh, well, they're talking about the hard hit ball stat, right? He's hitting things hard.
You know what? Jason Hayward's been unlucky for the last 2 years.
I disagree with that. We said hard hit balls, not rolling.
Euro overs to the second baseman.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That's right. Yeah. Right. So yeah, Anthony Reyes. That's one that's it's recently popped up on the radar because he joined the Palm Beach, I think high A, as a rehab, as to start his road to rehab. So by the end of the month, they'll have to make a decision on him. I think they've made one decision, which I'm actually a little relieved to hear, is that their intention is that he's a starter. And for him, I'm sure that's somewhat of relief because that's a role he can focus on getting prepared for, rather than, no, we're going to start him off in the bullpen in a controlled environment, and we can pick and choose where we want to put him. I'm sure for him and his preparation, his road back, I'm sure it's much better to. I'm going to start. He may not be starting with, up with St. Louis by the time we roll into June, but he's going to be a starter wherever he's at. So Yeah, that'll be. But before we assume he's going to be up in June, let's just see how he's performing throughout this, this rehab stint.
Who's going to go out, man? Because Flaherty seems to be doing well, Weaver seems to be struggling. You got Wainwright coming back, Reyes coming up. Somebody's going to have to go, right?
Yeah, they're going to have some tough choices to make, and I look at Weaver right now, and he's had a string of not so good starts, and he hasn't looked good at all. I'm curious, are they going to have to put him, down to Memphis for a while, make room and see what they've got. The real thing is, the tough thing for them is going to be figuring out what to do with Wainwright and what version are you going to get. Is he going to be back up for 2 or 3 starts and then start throwing, 81-mile-an-hour fastballs again? What do you do? I think that's going to be the most gut-wrenching decision that, guys like the front office is going to have to make.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. And I said before, and who, what do I know? I think that it's the time you move him into the bullpen and allow him to get a little bit more velocity, because he can just throw it all out there and maybe get some of that crazy movement back on his curveball. Guys are going to see it so infrequently now that they maybe won't be able to adjust to it. And he might be more effective out of the pen.
Yeah, and you might be right, Pete. I mean, would you rather have him, throwing that kind of stuff for an inning, or only being able to go 4?
Right.
Because they're seeing him a second time around. He's getting, he's wearing down fast. So he's a battery that doesn't hold its charge very well anymore. So
I like that analogy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels true, right? And so I think that you might be right, Pete. That might be the place where they need him, where he can serve them best. That'll definitely make life easier, and then they can start working these other guys into the rotation. So, yeah, tough decisions to make. It's going to be we'll be watching. We'll be watching when these guys come back. There's going to be a lot of movement.
Interesting how things went tonight. We started out very Cubs heavy as Elliott and I just tried to stretch until you got back, and then we went in the complete opposite direction.
Of course we did.
Speaking of which, Ron, for anybody who may have missed it online, you got a little bit of news that you should share.
Yes. So this, I've known about this for the better part of a month, maybe a month and a half, that I am going to be joining up with Chris Lawless, who's been on our show a few times. He runs a Facebook page that's grown exponentially over the last 3 years. He has a Facebook page called Cardinals Nation 24/7. They have over 11,000 followers now. And I think when we were talking to him, he was around 8-ish. So he's growing that thing rather quick. He has a Facebook group called Cardinals Nation, and they have well over 20,000 followers. So that's a big community. And Chris has always wanted to start his own podcast. And these kinds of things, it's like anything in life. You're not really sure how to take the step, how to set that up, how to start it. Things can become kind of difficult. And Chris has, a lot of things going on in his life as well. He's engaged. Tina, who he's engaged to, she went through a physical incident last year, and so he's been. They both have been working through that. He's actually in the process of moving too. So when you have all that stuff going on in your life, you prioritize that, and the things you'd like to do kind of get. You have to shove them to the side and wait a little bit. But Chris mentioned it. If I want to do reach out and do a Cardinals only thing, hey, would I be interested in doing the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast? Would I want to do that? And I jumped at the opportunity to do a my team focused show once a week in addition to this one, and so we're going to do that. So Chris and I are going to be recording our first episode tomorrow night, the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast. I'll release it as soon as I can, hopefully tomorrow night, if not early Saturday morning, and we'll kick that off. But we announced it this week on Facebook. Brand new logo, same guy who did ours. I did have to break the news to Chris that it was a Cub fan that did the Cardinals Nation 24/7 logo. Right.
So I need to take a closer look at that logo again and find the hidden
see if
dicks.
He hit something in the hidden portrait of Sammy somewhere. We're just mocking,
Right.
or Dusty Baker with a
flaccid
toothpick.
little penis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Or Dusty Baker with a toothpick there, standing in the background somewhere, going hit.
Right.
Yeah. But no, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a good thing. That's a big community, and really that podcast is going to serve that Facebook group and Facebook community. So it's a good thing. He's always wanted to do it. I was happy to help him do it, get it off the ground, get it going, and it will be released under the Team of Rivals network. So we actually have a network of shows now. You got to start somewhere, right? So we've got a second one, and that'll be Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast.
And Ron, you and I have talked about this offline, and who knows where it's going to go, but we never felt like this was just going to be limited to sports. I mean, when we first started kicking around the idea of this developing into a network, we certainly wanted to keep the aesthetic going as far as this Team of Rivals concept, that you have two people who are friends but who root for, bitter rivalries. But it doesn't have to be
left or right wingers. That'll be an extreme.
Yeah, we could absolutely could. Star Wars and Star Trek, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. I want that one.
There you go. So stay tuned. There could be some great things coming.
Yeah. So no, thanks, Pete, for allowing me to bring that up at this point, because we're getting ready to do this tomorrow night, and I'm looking forward to it.
Outstanding. And just to keep up on all the latest on that, you know where to find us online, obviously at the website, teamofrivalspodcast.com, where there is a link to the team store on Zazzle. You know how to find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I covered that at the top of the show. If you want to contact us, send us an email at the show of teamofrivalspodcast.com. You can contact Elliott on Twitter at
TOR_Elliott.
Well done. You've been already watching us live on YouTube, but if you're listening to us on the podcast after the fact, we always do, well, almost always broadcast live on Thursday nights when we do hit the interwebs. So you can catch us there. And then obviously anywhere you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Radio Public, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, and Google Play, just to name a few. Gentlemen, it's been a thrill.
It's been a mess and a thrill.
That too.
All right.
I can't wait to get off the live show so you can tell us just why you got your ass beat.
You're looking forward to it.
That'll be a bonus episode.
Yeah. So I would like to, first of all, I'd like to thank Chris and the Cardinals Nation 24/7 page and the Cardinals Nation group. They, we got a lot of comments and feedback, even just on the show preview. Looking forward to talking to all you guys tomorrow night. And I want to thank Jim from Two Birds on a Bat. Once again, he's mentioned the new show, but he continues to mention ours and bring us up. And it's become one of my favorite, Cardinals only shows to listen to. They have Benji Molina on there, great cast of characters. So if you haven't checked them out, please check them out. Two Birds on a Bat on Facebook. Like them, share them, review them. They support our show, and I'm going to do the same thing. Other show I'd like to call out is really Meet Me at Musial. Daniel's very generous with time. He's been on our show. He's invited me on a few of his, and he supports our show just like we'll support his as well. It's called Meet Me at Musial, and he does another one called Gateway to Baseball Heaven. I have yet to check that one out, but I intend to. But thank you to all those guys who have reached out to us and help us support this effort here at the Team of Rivals. So guys, sorry I missed the first half, but I'll go back and listen to it and cut out anything I don't like, and maybe just go straight to me.
Of course you would. No.
All right, everyone, have a great week, and I think we're going to do this again next week. Pretty sure.
All right.
Sorry, I missed that. Pete just gave me the title. Love this in the middle of the show. Yep. Go Cards. Bye, everyone.